India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariff country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariff country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And, I mean, we'll be talking about that. But, again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it works out very well. It's very... Traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more. But India is a very, they charge tremendous tariffs. I remember when Harley-Davidson couldn't sell their motorbikes into India because of the fact that India, the tax was so high, the tariff was so high. And Harley was forced to build, I guess they built, I don't know, that was a while ago, but I think they built a factory in India in order to avoid paying the tariffs. And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it might be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors.
अमेरिका के लोग राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के मोटो मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन यानी मागा से परिचित है। भारत के लोग भी विरासत और विकास की पटरी पर विकसित भारत 2047 के दृढ़ संकल्प को लेकर तेज गति शक्ति से विकास की ओर अग्रसर है। अमेरिका की भाषा में कहूं तो विकसित भारत का मतलब मेक इंडिया ग्रेट अगेन यानी मिगा। जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं यानी मागा, मागा प्लस मीगा, तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी।
Hi, you're watching Market Cafe with me, Shreyansi Singh, and over the next 1 hour, me and Priyanka Uppal will be getting you news and updates from within the country as well as across the globe. Also tell you which stocks you should be keeping on your radar. But before we do that, the biggest headline this hour, then PM Modi's visit to the United States. India and US have decided to work towards doubling bilateral trade to a whopping $500 billion by 2030, among other announcements. It is also understood that both the countries will also be working together on a slew of things ranging from artificial intelligence to semiconductors, with a special focus on establishing strong supply chains for strategic minerals. US President Donald Trump, of course, acknowledged India's recent move to reduce tariffs on US imports and also said that he's going to be beginning talks on disparities on trade and hope to reach an agreement. A slice of that statement also is something that you heard previously. In his statement, he also clarified that US is going to be simplifying charges, the same tariffs that India charges as well, while the trade deficit with India could be addressed with the sale of oil and gas. Now, among other people, PM Modi also met Trump's close ally Elon Musk. Now, he also held a meeting with Tulsi Gabbard, who's Trump's newly installed Director of National Intelligence, as they discussed enhancing counter-terrorism and cyber-security cooperation. And this meeting, mind you, was just a few hours after she was appointed. In this particular post, Times Network's Madhav Das Gopalkrishnan then caught up with the Indian diaspora outside the White House. Let's go across and listen into what they had to say.
For the last 5 or 6 years, it looks like Indo-American relations have kind of turned for the worse, and we're hoping that that will reverse now. It's a very critical time in in the change to a multipolar world right now, that the two biggest democracies, the US and India, start working together to create an ecosystem that can nourish and spread the values that we share.
No nation should promote illegal immigration, and America, after a long time of unchecked illegal immigration, has started returning people to their countries. Thousands of people are being sent back, and the protocol that the Trump administration is following is sending them in handcuffs. While it may be not the best possible way to send them back, we have no qualms, because the people who have been coming into America illegally.
All right, and that's what the Indian diaspora then had to say. Tell you what, let's also delve a little deeper, take a look at what else is there to discuss when it comes to this particular visit. There's a lot, because you have those three defense deals and dialogue. That is something that we'll be discussing with Atul Keshav, President USIBC, who joins us right now. Atul, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us today. I wanted to firstly talk about, when you talk about the possibilities in defense ties, if the US then wants to push selling defense products to India, is it an important piece for India to accept a deal, even if it might be expensive for Delhi to accept it?
Well, I mean, look, this is a sovereign decision for India. And India does have over $650 billion in foreign currency reserves, and it's a growing economy and a growing tax base thanks to the GST reforms. So India has more and more capability to afford these things, but this is where you negotiate. And India also has to decide if it wants world-class deterrence with world-class military platforms with a proven track record of reliability and capability. And if the US and India can talk together about what those needs are and how they can be addressed, I think there's a very collaborative frame in which things can be done. There's already a little bit of co-production happening in the Indian aerospace industry around Hyderabad between your private sector and our private sector. Why don't we double down on that? You know, maybe there are elements of shipbuilding that can be done between the United States and India where we share our collaborative advantage in order to make the costs lower and the production faster, and that would enhance our shared national deterrence. We could do that in fighter planes. We could do that in drone manufacturing. You know, there's no limit to what we could do if we decide to break down bureaucratic barriers, take it as a sense of partnership, and identify the needs and then fill them. You know, at the end of the day, our competitors are racing ahead. This is a foot race. We have to get ahead as well. And so I would hope that our bureaucracies can be creative. And this is where the personal relationship between the president and the prime minister can lend an air of possibility. Because if bureaucrats and policymakers think that they can go to their bosses to break down barriers, much can be achieved. And so I would hope that we would use a clean sheet of paper to think about how we can really leverage this moment.
All right, no limit to what India and US can do if the bureaucratic barriers then are broken. But I also wanted to talk to you about the AI and IT ecosystem then. It's important for India to import tech to further its AI and IT ecosystem, but US putting strictures in place at this point. It's not really about barriers then, isn't it?
So here's the thing. You got to look at it from the American perspective. We have faced so much leakage of our technological edge over the years. If you look at all of the planes that the Chinese field, a lot of them are just copies of American aircraft. And they have obtained those secrets and that technology in very untoward ways. And if you look at what has happened in the past few years on AI, even in the past few weeks on AI, there is a healthy degree of concern in official Washington about the further dissemination of the American technological edge in a way that ends up leaking to our strategic adversaries. And this is what is causing a bit of a pause, a bit of reticence in taking things to the next level with many of our key partners and allies. So I think this is something that's under very close scrutiny in the early days of the Trump administration. How do we leverage the strength and genius of our societies to win the AI foot race or the defense foot race without having all of our innovation flow to societies that are structured in a way where innovation is not possible, but that copying or even stealing is the way forward in trying to keep up with us. And so if the Indian and American sides can agree on protocols that really strictly control the human and technological penetration into our systems that could result in leaks that are disadvantageous, then I think we can have a good basis of going forward. But I think it's important to consider and accept that in Washington over the past few years, there's been growing and intensifying alarm at the loss of our technological edge through, unacceptable means.
Well, absolutely. I also wanted to talk to you about the level playing field that you mentioned, because talking about free movement as well as skilled professionals, there's a pushback on that account when it comes to the US. So how do you then ensure that this level playing field is provided?
So at the end of the day, the president is the lead foreign policy official under our constitutional system. And he has spoken very, very clearly about skilled labor and skilled workers and skilled immigration. And indeed, he has talked for years about the need for coherent immigration reform in the United States. I work for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has been very clear about the importance of having skilled workers be able to move around to the places in companies where they can have the most impact. And the truth is that in terms of the availability of skilled workers, there's no country other than India that has the scale of skilled talent that is essential for the operations of world-class companies. There is no other place on earth that compares to India. So we have to have a conversation as friends. We have to see how we can make this a win-win. This is where, leaders meet and then they task their staff with coming up with coherent outcomes that are good for one another. At the end of the day, President Trump, Prime Minister Modi want what's good for their people. And on the skilled worker issue and H-1Bs, immigration, as long as it's lawful, as long as it's regulated and controlled by the governments, then it's a good thing. And let's work toward ensuring that that pipeline exists in a way that benefits both of our industrial bases, American and Indian.
All right, thank you so much, Atul, for taking time out and joining us bright and early this morning. At the end of the day, both the leaders want whatever is good for their people. And that's the takeaway coming in from Atul Keshup as well of USIBC. But with that, let's kickstart the show then, start getting you all of the highlights coming in from the session when it comes to Wall Street. And Priyanka, I wanted to come to you to do just that. Just tell us about the handover coming in.
Morning, Shreyansi. Shreyansi, that's a key event, what you just spoke about and told the viewers about. But let's understand the cues that we've gathered from US markets. Now, US markets are on a pace for a winning week, ended on a higher note. Two key things what we saw. One is that the Donald Trump held off imposing the reciprocal tariffs. That one worked maybe. And second is some relief coming on the PPI front. So especially after the softer consumer price index, that's a favorite gauge of Fed whenever they have to take a decision on the interest rate. So PPI came in, that was some relief which came in from PPI. So how did markets reacted to it? During the regulatory session, S&P added nearly 1%. In fact, NASDAQ, which one fell a day prior, also rose 1.5%. And even Dow, the index where the banking and the financials heavy index, that one also advanced nearly 0.7%. And this was especially the move came in, the high move on the indices came in after Trump signed a presidential memorandum on reciprocal tariffs. However, he fell short of enacting them for the time being. On the other data index and of course the PPI index, PCE index, which is a favorite gauge, which came softer last week, we remember at the start of this week, but the PPI, producer price index, some relief came in from that market. And that's what we saw. If you talk about the currency moves, rupee fell yesterday a little. Some strengthening came at the start of the week, but no respite on that front. But the US indices seem to have been digesting the key macro data which have come in.
Well, absolutely, Priyanka, and not just US indices, right? When you take a look at oil prices also, they were also at this point largely digesting the sort of announcement that we've seen come in on the tariff front. But when you take a look at oil prices, largely steady as far as Thursday is concerned, pairing some of those losses of more than 1% earlier in the session as a potential peace deal between Russia and Ukraine continued to extend downward pressure. But you do have expectations about a pause in new US tariffs on the other side that are fueling optimism. So on the back of that, you have Brent crude futures that closed down about 16 cents, 0.2%, but managed to hold up above that $75 a barrel mark. When you take a look at US WTI as well, that's the one that settled down just 8 cents lower or 0.1%, $71 a barrel is the kind of mark that you're looking at as far as US WTI is also concerned. In fact, market participants at this point are reading through this sort of announcement coming in on the tariff front, and they've understood a pause on implementation of the tariffs to be also allowing negotiations to continue until the second quarter. Possibly that is something that the market is looking at, and that's why you have such a lackluster move coming in, or a rather subdued move coming in, not much happening as far as oil prices are concerned, but it's really gold that's taking cues as far as this particular announcement is concerned, because you do have spot gold inching back towards its record peak at this point. 0.4% uptick, but still elevated levels is what you're looking at as far as gold is concerned.
All right, and gold has hit, let's not forget, 8th record high this year itself. But let's move on. Let's get you some more stories. US President Donald Trump said that he had a lengthy and a highly productive phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Both the leader talked about beginning negotiations to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, Ukrainian President Zelensky, he wrote on X that he had a conversation with Trump to ensure an end to the Russian aggression and even ensure lasting and reliable peace. European leaders are, however, apprehensive of the peace deal, and in fact, European Union's foreign policy chief said that both Europe as well as Ukraine need to be involved in the agreement to work it out.
Well, absolutely. Let's also get the word coming in from Nandan Unikrishnan, who's a distinguished fellow at ORF, talks about what could be the key sticking points in Putin's negotiations with Trump ahead of their meeting. Then here's what we got when we talk about this particular conversation.
Well, some of the major points have already been enunciated by the US Secretary of Defense. And the points that he has made roughly coincide with the major demands made by some of the major demands made by the Russians. If there are sticking points, then one would, of course, be about the relationship, the security relationship between Ukraine and the West. That is not entirely clear at this point, although the Americans have said that they would not be sending any troops into Ukraine. The second sticking point could be what happens to the territories that Russia claims are part of its territory, but which are being held currently by the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians obviously would not want to give it up without getting something in return. So there will be, I suppose, serious discussion on that. But as Trump said, the negotiations are now going to start. So it is still early days. We have to see what the two delegations, when they start talking, what points they put on the table.
Okay, now at the same time, let's get you in detail that how did PPI fare out? That one recorded, the producer price index rose by 0.4%, indicating a slight uptick in the inflationary pressures. 0.4% rise in PPI exceeded the forecasted growth of 0.3%, showcasing the robustness of the manufacturing sector especially. And now this is higher than expected reading, which is viewed as positive for the US dollar, as it suggests a strengthening economy and potential upward pressure on interest rates. When compared to the previous month, the reading shows a decrease from the 0.5% print which came in December month. On an annualized basis, PPI rose 3.5%, following the 3.3% increase in December month.
Alright, then moving on to some corporate updates. The much anticipated merger between the two auto giants, that is Nissan and Honda, has been officially called off. Remember, the merger deal was worth $60 billion, and it could have propelled the two automakers to become the fourth largest automobile manufacturer after Toyota, Volkswagen and Hyundai. The cancellation was announced through a joint statement, and Honda and Nissan in fact have confirmed that they will be continuing their collaboration under the framework of a strategic partnership.
Okay, with this, we stay for a short break here. When we come back, we get you the cues from the Asian market and all the stocks that you need to track for today. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, now let's get you a check going on the Asian markets and see what they're up to at this point. When you take a look at Hang Seng, that's the one that is holding on to a gain of about 1.4%. But firstly, on your screens, you have ASX 200. ASX 200 is up just about 0.4% at this point. Hang Seng, as you can see, is up 1.4% as we speak. Now, of course, in terms of ASX 200, you did have the Australian index hitting an intraday record in the previous session, currently building on to some of those gains at this point. And over in Japan, then the benchmark Nikkei is the one that started the day on a back foot. Currently, it's down about 0.6%. Let's try and get that one on the screen. 0.5% is the kind of downtick that you're seeing right now. When you take a look at South Korea's Kospi as well, that's the one that's down about 0.6% at this point as well. Lastly, let's also take a quick look at Shanghai, because that is also holding on to a tinge of red at this point. On your screens, 0.2% downtick coming in for Shanghai as well. That's largely the kind of handle that you have coming in as far as Asian markets are concerned. So quite the mixed bag for Asia. But back home, of course, we shut shop around the 23,000 levels. Currently, what is being penciled in, at least on a spot basis, is a gap up open. So let's really see how that pans out for us. In fact, on a futures basis also, Priyanka, we're penciling in a good start as far as we're concerned.
Absolutely, 86 point, that what you see, it's above 23,194, close to 23,200. But let's see that do markets hold on to this gain, build on to further gains, or maybe they pair out the gains the way we've seen it in the previous sessions also. Welcome back. You're tuned into Market Cafe on 80 Now. This is Priyanka along with me, Shriyansi, and it's a news break confirmed. The RBI has conducted a meeting with NBFCs to take stock of concerns in the MFI industry. Anjali Palod joins in with more details on that.
As ET Now reported earlier, the RBI has confirmed that it met with select non-banking financial corporations and industry representatives on 13th of February, and this meeting was chaired by the RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra and the Deputy Governors Rajeshwar Rao, Ravi Shankar and Swaminathan J were also attending this meeting. Now, in this meeting, the RBI has stressed upon balancing the growth aspirations of these financial institutions, but balancing it with sound practices so that consumer interests are protected. The RBI has also asked NBFCs to ensure that their customers get a fair treatment, and the RBI has also urged these NBFCs to become a part of the Unified Lending Interface, or ULI, which has been rolled out by the RBI. Now, this was the first meeting that the new RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra held with the select NBFCs after he assumed office, and in attendance of this meeting from the financial institution sides were government NBFCs, housing finance companies, microfinance institutions, as well as self-regulatory organizations, FIDC, and two SROs of the MFI sector, that is Sadhan and MFIN, that attended this meeting. Other than that, the executive directors in charge of regulations, supervision and financial inclusion from the RBI were also in attendance.
All right, and that's an ET Now Newsbreak confirmed. Thank you so much, Anjali, for getting us those updates yet again on this particular story. But moving on, then the SEBI has settled a case with Paytm Money over tech violations. The company, in fact, will be paying 45 lakh rupees in lieu of these allegations. We have Anurag Shah joining in with more details on this. Anurag, tell us a little more about this kind of settlement that has been worked out now.
Paytm Money settles a market norm violation case with SEBI. Paytm Money pays 45,50,000 rupees for the settlement with SEBI. In July 2024, notice was issued to Paytm Money on the violation, and violations are majorly linked to the technical glitch. These were the violations and related to the SEBI's framework of circular of November 2022. Main points related to the violation was that Paytm Money failed to meet the 70% limit for timely alerts on the critical assets. SEBI also flagged the missing documentary evidence on the peak load observation. Other than that, regulator also found non-compliance of connecting critical system to log monitoring, and live disaster recovery drill was also not conducted in 2023 between April to September 2023. So these were the technical violations. So Paytm Money agreed for the settlement, and SEBI's high power committee made this settlement, and Paytm Money have paid 45,50,000 for the settlement.
All right, Anurag, so the case has settled. Paytm has settled it. And let's see, the stock has been trading in a consolidated zone from many sessions. Let's see how do traders react to this news on stock today. Moving on, Rashmi Saluja has now ceased to be the board director of Religare Enterprise. This is as her reappointment was not approved by the Reserve Bank of India. Anurag Joshi, who's keeping a close track on this dire news, is here with more details on this case. Anurag.
In a sign of a possible culmination of an intense corporate battle that has raged for over a year, Rashmi Saluja, the executive chairperson of Religare Enterprises, has ceased to be the director of the company. This came after a reply from the Reserve Bank of India to the company on the matter. The company had sought a clarification from the RBI following the February 7th annual general meeting of the company, in which the shareholders of the company, an overwhelming majority of the shareholders, had voted against the reappointment of Saluja as a director of the company. The number was over 97% of the holders of Religare Enterprises had voted against that resolution, which had proposed to reappoint Saluja as a director. Now, this development, the removal of Saluja as a director of the company, has repercussions on her continuance as the head of Religare Enterprises, since she needs to be on the board. Religare Enterprises is a non-banking financial company, and in that regard, the company had sought the RBI's response on the matter. In a separate and key development, the open offer of the Burman family to acquire 26% shareholding of the company has closed today. The Burmans already are owning 25% equity stake and have sought to increase that stake through an open offer, and the outcome of the open offer will be known later.
All right, thanks Anurag for getting us all of those important details then. But Priyanka, I think the story of the hour definitely has to be Trump and Modi, because have you seen the kind of commentary that we've seen come out recently when it comes to both of these leaders, and quite the diplomacy there. So let's go across and listen into a slice of what both of these leaders then had to say.
India traditionally is the highest, just about the highest tariffed country. They charge more tariffs than any other country. And I mean, we'll be talking about that, but again, whatever they charge us, we're charging them, so it works out very well. It's very... Traditionally, India is right at the top of the pack, pretty much. There are a couple of smaller countries that are actually more, but India is a they charge tremendous tariffs. I remember when Harley Davidson couldn't sell their motorbikes into India because of the fact that India, the tax was so high, the tariff was so high. And Harley was forced to build, I guess they built, I don't know, that was a while ago, but I think they built a factory in India in order to avoid paying the tariffs. And that's what people can do with us. They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it may be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors.
अमेरिका के लोग राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के मोटो मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन यानी मागा से परिचित है। भारत के लोग भी विरासत और विकास की पटरी पर विकसित भारत 2047 के दृढ़ संकल्प को लेकर तेज गति शक्ति से विकास की ओर अग्रसर है। अमेरिका की भाषा में कहूं तो विकसित भारत का मतलब मेक इंडिया ग्रेट अगेन यानी मिगा। जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं, यानी मागा प्लस मीगा, तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी। सवाल सिर्फ भारत का नहीं है, वैश्विक रूप से हम इस मत के हैं कि गैर कानूनी तरीके से जो लोग दूसरे देशों में होते हैं, उनको वहां रहने का कोई कानूनी अधिकार तो है नहीं। जहां तक भारत और अमेरिका का सवाल है, हमने हमेशा कहा है कि जो वेरीफाइड होगा, कि जो सच्चे अर्थ में भारत का ही नागरिक होगा, वो अगर अमेरिका में गैर कानूनी तरीके से रहता है तो उसको वापस लेने के लिए भारत तैयार है। मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से एक बात हमेशा एप्रिशिएट करता आया हूं, सीखता आया हूं कि वे राष्ट्रहित को सर्वोपरि रख करके काम करते हैं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की तरह मुझे भी भारत के हितों को सर्वोपरि रखते हुए कार्य करना, ये मेरे लिए सौभाग्य की बात है।
One thing that I deeply appreciate and I learned from President Trump is that he keeps the national interest supreme, and like him, I also keep the national interest of India at the top of everything else, and this has been my real fortune.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe. Now let's get you all the action from the derivative space. Ansh is joining us. Ansh, no respite. FI has been selling with a similar kind of quantum. What all did you capture yesterday?
That's right. Yes, they are selling. Also in chart, if you see, Nifty has been declining for 7th consecutive session, but not that of a bad news, because if you see chart, then it has been sustaining about that 23,000 psychological mark on a closing basis. So unless until we don't see a decisive breakdown and close below that level, we can have some hopes in the market. But if you talk about index future, then here we are seeing that open interest has gone down by around 1.7%, indicating long unwind. So a bit of a negative sign here. Also on option front, we are seeing most active call writing happening at a 23,200 strike, indicating resistance around this level. The previous session high was also around 23,220-230 level. So this is the level which is facing very strong selling pressure. If we talk about Nifty Bank, then Nifty Bank is in a sideways range from last 3 consecutive sessions. So here we are seeing a neutral stance happening. But in index future, we are seeing open interest has gone up by around 1.6%, indicating some short build-up happening here. Now, if we talk about index future positions, then starting with FII's position in index future, we are seeing that they have added around the 2,000 long contract. They have covered some short as well. So net to net, we are seeing addition of around 3,200 contract on upside. So they are getting a bit bullish in this market. Whereas on downside, if we see client position, then they have covered their long by around 2,700 contract. They have added some short as well. So net to net, we are seeing reduction of around 4,300 contract. So on the contrast, they are getting bearish in the market. Also, if we talk about stocks that are in focus, then we saw very significant long build-up happening in Muthoot Finance, SBI Card and Prestige Estate, where a short build-up has been happening in Adani Enterprises, PI Industry and KEI. So keep an eye on the stocks.
Absolutely, Ansh. We'll keep an eye on all of those counters that you've also mentioned. But time now to get your list of stocks as far as the ones that you should be looking at bright and early this morning. In fact, we have Ria standing by with just that list. Ria, one last time on this particular show, tell us what that list looks like then.
Well, yes, good morning. Let's take a look at the stocks that are going to be in focus today. First up, we have KNR Construction on the back of its Q3 numbers. Now, the revenue has seen a decline of around 15% over the previous year. But if you look at the profitability front, net profit has gone up around 85% on a year-on-year basis, and even the EBITDA has increased by around 13%. Margins have also seen a very strong increase of 742 basis points, coming in at 30.1% in this quarter. So overall, a good set coming in for KNR Construction. HCC, on the other hand, has reported quite a weak set of numbers. revenue has gone down by around 31% on a year-on-year basis, and this time around they've reported a net loss of around 38 crores versus a profit of 233 crores in Q3 of last year. Even on the EBITDA front, they've reported a loss of 30.4 crores versus a profit of 238.65 crores, so weak set coming in for HCC. Moving on to Nazara Technologies, they've reported quite a mixed set of numbers in this quarter. Revenue has gone up by around 67% on a year-on-year basis, but the net profit has seen a decline of around 52% over the previous year. The EBITDA has been largely flat in this quarter, but the margins have seen a decline of around 441 basis points, coming in at just about 6.9% in this quarter. Deepak Nitrite has also reported quite a weak set of numbers. Revenue has gone down by around 6.5% sequentially, but on the net profit front, that has gone down by around 50%, and even the EBITDA has seen a decline of around 43% sequentially. Margins have also seen a very steep decline of 580 basis points, coming in at just about 8.8% in this quarter. Shifting away from earnings, Aurobindo Pharma will be in focus. The European Commission has granted a marketing authorization in the European Union for Zafilti to Curatech Biologics, so Aurobindo Pharma will be in focus on the back of that. Persistent Systems will also be in focus since they have entered into an asset purchase agreement with Soho Design Dragon in Lithuania for the acquisition of its identified assets for $2 million. Also keep your eye out on Mahindra Lifespace Developers since they have approved a fundraising of up to rupees 1,500 crores by way of a rights issue. And lastly, United Breweries will also be in focus since the board has approved an investment in a greenfield brewery in Uttar Pradesh. This facility will be designed to produce both mainstream and premium products, including Heineken, with the provision for both cans and bottles, and this investment will be for rupees 750 crores. So keep your eye out on all of these stocks today.
Thanks very much, Ria, for all those stocks and highlighting which were the good earnings as well as the weak set of earnings reported by the companies. Moving on, it was an inline set of numbers for Hindalco in this quarter. Higher aluminium prices aided revenue growth, while the copper business has beat estimates. Ashesha joins in with a complete breakup. Ashesha.
Well, yes, Hindalco has reported in-line set of numbers, and higher alumina and aluminium prices in the quarter gone by aided numbers in the third quarter. Remember, Novelis had already reported its numbers a couple of days ago, and those numbers were below what the street was working with, especially when it comes to spreads, where EBITDA per ton declined to $406, which was a decline of about 17% on a sequential basis. But Hindalco's standalone numbers are largely in line with what the street was working with. As far as consolidated net debt is concerned, that has risen sequentially by about 18%, so that could be a bit of a concern. But management commentary on the impact of tariffs that have been imposed by the US on steel and aluminium will be crucial. But all in all, numbers look largely in line with what the street was working with. We have some brokerage reports where CLSA has maintained its outperform stance with a target price of 800 rupees per share. They believe numbers were largely in line. Third quarter aluminium profitability was in line with what the street was working with, and consolidated net debt, as I mentioned, has risen, and that is on account of Novelis net debt, which has risen in the quarter gone by. JP Morgan has also maintained its overweight stance with a target price of 680, where they say that ongoing capex projects are on track. Remember, Novelis also has a big Bay-Millet capacity expansion project that is currently underway. But all in all, standalone numbers look good, no complaints as such. And Novelis had already reported its numbers, so large chunk of revenue was already reported, but no major complaints over here.
All right, then no major complaints, but thank you so much, Ashesha, for joining us with that update. With that, completely out of time on this edition of Market Cafe on ET Now. The market up next, so don't go anywhere.